And we're back here on a special edition of the Daily Report on WEIC.US Internet Radio. My name is Chris. I'm joined once again by Carl and Dave, and we are still discussing the obviously the death of Osama Bin Laden, the killing by U.S. Navy SEALs in Pakistan of Osama Bin Laden, and kind of going over reactions, both from around the world and our personal reactions, as well as we'll eventually get into what the world's going to look like going forward. Carl, before the break, you were talking about the home that Bin Laden was taken in. You said it was kind of a fortress, and one of the things that tipped officials off was that they didn't put their garbage out.
That's correct. Yeah.
Were there any other things like what? Obviously, it wasn't just a hut. It was a pretty good size.
I actually have a description of it here. It says the physical security measures of the compound are extraordinary. It has 12 to 18-foot walls topped with barbed wire. Internal walls section off different portions of the compound to provide extra privacy. Access to the compound is restricted by 2 security gates. And the main structure, a 3-story building, has few windows facing outside the compound, and a terrace on the 3rd floor has a 7-foot privacy wall.
So it wasn't.
It was a fortress.
It was he was hunkered down there. So obviously he was, and like we said in the last. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and this is sort of coming out, and there's a lot of speculation going on about this, but apparently this area where he was in was actually a pretty urban environment with a large military component around there.
Yeah, I read that as well.
And there's all this. I guess the former president of Pakistan is pretty upset that they weren't informed before the raid happened. But it seems like somebody must have known.
Yeah, President Obama in his speech did say that he called the president of Pakistan, President Zardari, and everyone else on President Obama's team and the administration spoke with their Pakistani counterparts. Now, whether or not they did before or after,
I was under the impression they didn't do it until after.
Yeah, it was under the impression.
But I mean, at the same time, I can't really blame the Obama administration for making that call, because you don't want any chance.
All it takes is a few minutes to tip somebody off.
Exactly, and if there is, I mean, we all know the Pakistani government, though they are making great strides, isn't exactly the most leak-proof government in the world.
Right.
So and I'm sure that Bin Laden he must have had someone in a government somewhere. I mean, that's just the way it works, I would assume. So yeah, I can't be mad at Obama for doing this on his own and not notifying the Pakistani government.
If the government of Pakistan was legitimate, I think they would understand that fact too.
Well, I think that if the government of Pakistan was legitimate, they would have gotten Osama bin Laden a few years ago.
Right. Though, it was my understanding that we got this information from them, though, that our CIA...
That wasn't what I read.
Well, no. I think what Dave's saying is that there was kind of a collaboration between Pakistani forces and American intelligence.
Right.
Granted, American intelligence...
there is that ongoing relationship.
Yes, took the lead. And obviously American intelligence did most, if not all, of the legwork and footwork with Pakistanis, just saying, hey, check that house out, and then Americans go and do it.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't just the Pakistanis tipping us off, but it wasn't just the Americans working on their own. So I can see what you mean.
Right.
Was there a thought that went with that?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll never know many of the details.
Oh, yes. I actually just saw right before we went on the air that the U.S. government, I saw on obviously my Twitter feed, that the U.S. government is still debating whether or not to release a photo of Bin Laden's body, because it may or may not be considered too graphic.
Yeah,
personally, I want to see it.
I'm betting it comes out at some point.
It'll get leaked somewhere.
I mean, everything before Obama's speech was about how the burden of proof is going to be incredibly high.
Yes.
To prove that. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of doubt so far, but there's always going to be that fringe element who says, was this really...
Especially with the burial at sea happening so quickly afterwards.
Although they did take some tissue samples for DNA, so they didn't just I don't know what they took, but obviously it wasn't like they didn't chop off a hand and save that or whatever. But they've got tissue for DNA samples.
They probably got some blood.
And I'm assuming that the U.S. government will do the DNA samples and release the results as quickly as possible.
Right. There is even still a lot of mainstream news outlets were saying that might not be enough for the Muslim world.
Yes, they're going to need a photo.
There's always going to be those fringe people. But the problem, though, is, in my mind, once you release this photo, does this photo become, the thing that helps further Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, that's true. And we'll get into that later. Before we do, though, I've got a couple of reactions that I thought were worth sharing. One is from a lady named Debbie Lee, who founded a group called America's Mighty Warriors. And she is also the mother of Mark Allen Lee, who was the first Navy SEAL killed in the Iraq War. She said, and this comes from the Daily Caller online, she said that when she was talked to, she was still shaking. And her quote here, the good one, is that some justice has been served. Hopefully he found out that he didn't get his 72 virgins, and I hope they stoke the fire hotter than normal down there, because that son of a gun definitely deserves it. Justice has been served on that man. And I think that's the big message that most Americans are taking from this, is that justice has been served. And all of the people that have died fighting these wars are kind of vindicated. We kind of got what we were after,
Right. It's definitely it seems to be a more nuanced response than it would have been had this happened in, December of 2001, or January 2002, something
right,
where everything was still very directly related. There's been so much that's happened in the time period since that I think some people aren't sure how to react exactly. There's certainly a sense of relief, but it's not the same sense of jubilation that probably would, or retribution that would have been felt.
Exactly.
That happened 9 years ago.
And that's the main thing that a lot of people are taking from this is like I said, the deaths of all of our service people are the importance of those are being confirmed, and these people, our soldiers, didn't die in vain. They died for something. We're going to take a break. We will be right back here on the WEIC.us